Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Today's episode's another game preview, this being the London game this Sunday between the Jags, who are technically hosting, but it's being at Wembley really hosting, the Baltimore Ravens, in a game that I'm sure everyone is predicting to be a defensive slugfest. You're not going to find me being a contrarian here. Both of these offenses have looked pretty woeful thus far. So as per, I'll be going through what I think will be the key factors in this game, how I expect both teams to game plan, and how I feel the end result's going to end up. So we're going to start with the Jacksonville offense, if you can call it that. I have been very clear in my views on Blake Bortles thus far over the course of this show's short existence. He has done nothing to prove me wrong. This team is doomed and severely flawed as long as he's playing quarterback. The odd thing to me is that the franchise does seem to recognise this and has decided they're just going to have him throw the ball as little as possible. In some kind of perfect dream world, they'd run the ball 40 times with Leonard Fournette, 20 times with Chris Ivory, and that would be the end of that. As a result, we're going to see Leonard Fournette running the ball far more than any team should really attempt to run the ball against this Ravens defence. The Ravens were the best run defence in the league last year. It's a bit hard to judge at this point, having played the Bengals and the Browns, because it's the Bengals and the Browns, how good they really are, but they've looked absolutely stellar. I can't critique them too much based on the low standard of opposition they've had offensively. So I'm expecting to see, they're just not going to dare have Flacco throw against these guys. The Jags really struggled with pass protection last week against the Titans, particularly the tackles. Cam Robinson, it was his second game. He struggled with Brian Orakpo, as you might expect. The interior, they're going to have a tough job. You've got Brandon Williams in there. He's an absolute load. Terrell Suggs has started the season really well. I can't see this team looking to drop back too often. And as well as that, the Ravens secondary is stellar. They've got, in my opinion, the second best safety tandem in the league. Eric Weddle's got off to a great start to his season. The corners are pretty good. It's going to be tough sledding, so expect to see the bare minimum Blake Bortles effort, even perhaps less throws than we've seen even in previous games. This team is going to try and grind this clock out. We saw the Jags defence get absolutely gassed last week. The Jags have to come up with some kind of plan that enables them to get more first downs. Not necessarily score a huge amount, just get first downs to keep those guys fresh so that they have a chance in this game. Of course, as I said, a healthy dose of Leonard Fournette is going to happen. Running him up the gut is going to be incredibly difficult with the calibre of guys the interior on this Ravens defence has. They're going to have to try and get some stuff going to the outside. I think that's going to be very, very difficult. Again, Terrell Suggs, an exceptional player, is going to be... That's just the way it's going to be. He's going to see a ton of carries, and I don't think it's going to be enormously successful. What they're going to have to do is hope he gets just enough success. The Ravens have to put that eighth man down in the box to give Blake Bortles at least some chance of going over the top. Of course, this team's missing its top wide receiver, so they don't have a huge amount of quality there either. It's really hard to see where they're going to be able to attack this Ravens secondary. But it's going to have to be a short passing game. They can't let Bortles put it up there. He's going to turn the ball over if he does. He's going to be under huge amounts of pressure. Leonard Fournette is going to have a stunning game. I don't even know how you game plan this one, frankly. It's going to have to use screens. I think they're going to have to try and go horizontal in just about everything they do, because they can't afford to let Blake Bortles go vertical. He's not going to have enough time to do so in the pocket. He's poor under pressure, and I don't trust his decision making one bit at this point in time. If you're the Ravens, you copy what the Titans did last week. They gave the blueprint for everyone when playing this team. Not exactly rocket science. 8 men in the box, stop Leonard Fournette, and Blake Bortles will probably give you some gifts by just the mere fact that he's Blake Bortles. So expect to see Terrell Suggs wreaking havoc. Expect to see a lot of blitzing. Eric Weddle just sitting there. Expect to see a lot of cover 3 type plays. I don't think the wideouts that the Jags will offer nearly enough to prevent that being a significant factor in this game. Really, I just don't think there's that much more to it. Guys like CJ Mosley, Brandon Williams, Suggs, this defence is far too talented to let this fairly mediocre Jags group score on them. It's going to be down to Leonard Fournette. If he can have a Herculean monster performance, Chris Ivory spelling him, if they can wear this team down, maybe they'll get some success. But hard to see it based on what we've seen from this Ravens team so far. They haven't let up, and against the bad offenses they've played so far, here's another one they could potentially add to the list. On the other side of the ball, we're looking at some fairly similar stuff. These two teams are fairly similar in their construction at this point. The Ravens have been incredibly run heavy. It's pretty clear at this point they don't have a huge amount of trust in Joe Flacco. He looked a lot better last week than he did in week 1, but he's not entirely healthy. However, they have lost Marshall Yonder, and that's a reason for the Jags fans to maybe think they could pull something off in this game. Big bunch of pass rushers there that they've got in Jacksonville. Whilst they were stymied last week by a very good Tennessee offensive line, I'm not sure that's going to be the case for the Ravens with Yonder missing. I expect to see Calais Campbell wreaking havoc in the interior. Malik Jackson's still a good run player. Whether these edge rushers can do too much is another question. I expect to see Yannick Ngakoue, I'm still not entirely sure how to pronounce that, playing on the left side, because I think the right tackle position is an issue for the Ravens. Dante Fowler against Ronnie Stanley, I think that one's a toss-up. Still not entirely convinced by Fowler. But if he can get if Ngakoue can get some pressure on Flacco, then you're going to see the Ravens start to cool off the passing game. I think if they see Flacco take any kind of big hits early in this game under constant pressure, I think you can force the Ravens to become even more run heavy and see the kind of effort we saw in week 1 where they only attempted 15 or 16 passes. On top of that, I'm not a huge fan of the Ravens' weapons. Mike Wallace is Mike Wallace. He might get a couple of shots deep, but I don't expect him to get consistently open against these corners. I'm not sure how healthy Jalen Ramsey is at this point, but frankly, he's too talented to be beaten consistently by any of these guys. Jeremy Macklin's a savvy player. He'll get a couple of plays underneath, but I can't see him breaking one against these corners. They're doing a very good job playing aggressively at the moment. Hard to see him getting too much separation and breaking anything out there. Flacco does love the tight ends. If there's one place I can see him going, it'll be the veteran Ben Watson, who had a big game last week. I like the Jags linebacking group, but they're not the best in coverage. They've got the potential there, but Poslasny's just not got the speed for it. Miles Jack hasn't quite grasped that part of the game yet. And Telvin Smith's a better run player. Telvin Smith's a good all-round player, but I think if they can keep Watson away from him, then they can have some success. What the Ravens need to do, take away that tight end position. And much like the Ravens, I think their game plan will be somewhat similar. A lot of blitzing. They'll trust those guys out on an island against this group of corners. Of course, you're going to have a safety shade over the top of Mike Wallace, because as good as these corners are, Mike Wallace still has the speed to take one over the top, and Flacco's got the arm to do it, bad back and all. So that's going to be the case. I expect to see a lot of 2-3 tight end sets in this game as both teams actually try to establish themselves at the line of scrimmage against some really talented defensive fronts. And it's going to just come down to that. Which team can grind the ball out best? I fancy the Ravens' chances. I think they're going to have some element of passing game to them that I don't think that Jacksonville will. And on top of that, I trust Flacco to protect the ball and make good decisions, whereas Blake Bortles, I absolutely do not. In spite of the fact I think the Jags have a more talented run game, I think this is just too much for them. It's a horrible matchup for them in terms of what the Ravens do well. And as a result, I see nothing other than another resounding Baltimore victory. And that may lead to one of the most unimpressive 3-0 sides of all time. And not as a critique of the Ravens, really, but more of the calibre of teams they've played. I mean, the Bengals, Browns and Jags offences in the first 3 weeks of the season. Your defence should be looking pretty good when it's had to face that lot. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on this matchup. Not the most entertaining one. Wouldn't normally have covered it. However, it is being held in London. So I feel like I've got to be a little bit patriotic with this one. And here's hoping it surprises me, much like last night's game did, which ended up shockingly high scoring. So, thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, if you've got anything you want to comment on this game, do so. We've got the comment section below, the Cover Zero Facebook page. You can find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. As always, check out some of the other stuff. Got plenty of other game previews up, game reviews each week. Every Wednesday at the moment, we're doing the Cover Zero Roundtable. Currently hoping to do that as a live stream each week. We did this week. I don't see why that would change. Just me and a couple of mates talking ball, reviewing each of the games, previewing each of the games. So that's really good stuff. I hope you check that out. If you can like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon. It'll all be greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate people checking the show out. And have a good one. And go Bucks.